Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Coast to Coast. I'm your host, Crina Mustafa, alongside Calvin Wetzel, and I am back in case you missed me last week. In case you didn't notice, I'm here again. We got a lot to talk about on today's show, including a segment that I'm currently in that we're also going to talk about called exam season a little bit later. But first, we're going to recap the Thanksgiving tournament. Cal, you ready?
I'm so ready. I missed hanging out with you. It's only been you only took 1 week off, but I feel like it's been a long time.
No shade to Mark, who was
Yeah,
on last
no,
week.
no. Mark sucks. Full shade to Mark. Just kidding. Mark, I love you. We had a great pod. I'm glad you're back, Cree. Let's talk. Let's talk hoops.
Okay, love that. Okay, let's talk about the Triple T Thanksgiving tournament takeaways because we love alliteration here on Coast to Coast. First of all, before we even get to the games, I just want to say how jealous I was seeing all of these teams playing in like the Cayman Islands, playing in all these like tropical places while we're just like stuck in very cold, approaching winter in North America where it gets dark at 5 p.m. And it's just kind of blah right now. So I just want to say that seems like especially as a student, like that seems like a great place to have a little bit of a um like kind of vacation because you are playing and stuff, but it's just nice to have like a change of scenery. So that was my first thing. I just wanted to say it looked like everybody had a great time. And hopefully students and like staff, teachers, whoever was there, got a little bit of relaxation. I don't really think teachers would be there. I don't know why I said teachers, but I bet they wish they were there. But we got three teams that we kind of wanted to hit on from that week of tournaments and games. We'll talk about NC State first. They had a statement win against Colorado. They made it in the top 5 of this week's ranking. Cal, who impresses you the most on this team so far?
The thing that impresses me the most about NC State is that who impresses me the most is different from game to game. And
Ooh,
we talked about Sanaya Rivers the last time I think you were on the pod, or maybe this
I
time
know,
before
ages
that.
ago.
Yeah, it was like 10 years ago, it feels like. And she was the most impressive. That was from the UConn game, obviously. She really stepped up in that game, but we've seen different games where Isaiah James gets going. I was impressed in the game against Colorado, which is probably sort of the headliner game that we should talk about in the Paradise Jam, where they really had no trouble beating a Colorado team that everyone was super high on, before that after they took out LSU. So and I was impressed with River Baldwin in that game, did an excellent job defensively, I think, on Aaronette Vonleh. They didn't really even have to double Aaronette Vonleh that often. River Baldwin pretty much held it down. So I'm it's another cop out, but I'm just thoroughly impressed with NC State as a team, and I think that they have a lot of different people stepping up on different nights. And you know what? I'm going to get to see them in person this coming weekend. I'm going to be down there in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Nice.
I'm very excited about it. I don't want them to win. Illinois State is playing there. I hope NC State loses. But I'm also excited to watch them in person, Illinois State aside, because it's clearly a much better team than I think just about anyone thought coming into this season, and they're really fun to watch. They're pushing the ball a lot more than they have in the last several years under Wes Moore, and they have some great athletes. So I'm very excited to watch them play. They've been really impressive so far.
I just want to say I love it when your bias just like creeps out and you're just like, I'm not ashamed of it. I'm proud of. I really respect that about you. I knew you had like some agenda when you were like, I hope they don't win. And I was like, uh-oh, what's coming next? What's the reason?
I am not
I knew
gonna
there
hide it.
was.
If you're watching on YouTube, I have the Illinois State stuff back here, so I'm not gonna hide it. This is my squad. No shade to NC State. I'll root for you guys the rest of the season. Can't root for you in that game. All about the bias on this podcast.
I love it. I will say too, and you said like not many people maybe thought of them being as like one of the top teams. I think maybe outside of like Ari Chambers, who I think that's like her home school. I know she's been tweeting a lot about them, especially since they kind of burst into the rankings this week and last week. But yeah, I think what you said about different players being able to be successful every night. Like, do you think like that's one of the main reasons why they've been so successful these last couple of weeks and have been able to get some of these bigger wins?
I do. I think you don't necessarily know kind of who you're trying to take away or how you're trying to guard them. I think it's a difficult team to scout, at least early in the season. I think when they get into ACC play, they'll probably hit a wall at some point, and then they'll figure it out and adjust. And it's always that sort of bigger chess match back and forth between coaches. But right now, like Sanaya Rivers is breaking out. Like I said, they're playing faster. They're playing a little bit differently. They have so much athleticism and passing all around that it's so hard to they sort of just picked apart Colorado's hard hedges on a lot of the ball screens. And Colorado, like we said, was playing excellent basketball coming in that game. But it's just this is a really tough team to guard, I think. In their defense, you look at that game, Colorado missed a lot of shots, to be fair, but what do they have? 8 points, like, in the middle of the second quarter or something like that? NC State was suffocating, and they're really getting after it on the glass. So it's just there's a lot of strengths on this team, and it's such a tough team to match up with.
All right, there you have it. That's one of our teams to watch from our Thanksgiving tournament takeaways. NC State. Make sure you keep an eye on them as they continue on the week. I think they're ranked at number 5 in this week's rankings, so pretty high, pretty high. All right, the next thing we want to talk about, UCLA. What has stood out to you about Lauren Betts and her fit with this team so far? Because you and I have talked a lot on this pod about like the top portal transfers, her being one of them. It seems like she's kind of fit in like a glove. And so like I'm wondering like what has stood out to you about her so far?
She has fit in so well, and, it's really not a very heavy ball screen offense, and not that she couldn't fit as a roller and pick and rolls too, but they are just featuring her so, so, so hard in terms of post ups. It's not complicated. I don't wanna, take anything away from what they're doing, but it's really is just Lauren Betts is unstoppable in the post, and, what are you gonna do about it? And it's been I think Mark Schindler talked about this in his recent article. It's been really big for their whole offense because it opens up a lot with her gravity in the post. Then you have players like Kiki Rice shooting the ball really well, London Jones shooting the ball really well, Charisma Osborne shooting the ball really well, and these players are getting open looks because of how much the defense has to worry about Lauren Betts on the post. To me, actually, though, as dominant as she's been in that regard, and as much as helped the offense, I think defensively is where she has had the biggest impact. She's only averaging 1.3 blocks a game, but that number is so misleading to me because teams aren't even going in there and they're not even trying. They're just not
Mhm.
even challenging her at all. No one is taking shots at the rim against UCLA. If you look at their numbers from last year to this year in terms of the amount of shots they're giving up at the rim and the amount of threes that they're giving up, it's really night and day both ways. They're allowing so many more threes, and it's not because they have some porous perimeter defense or anything. It's just because teams are like, well, we're not going to go score at the rim
We
on Lauren Betts, so
yeah.
let's jack threes. That it's she's had a huge impact. I did think it was funny that the other day against Niagara, she played 5 minutes. She didn't play after the first quarter, which we were both having Thanksgiving stuff, couldn't watch the game. I went back and watched the film, and I was like, wait a minute, she's not hurt. What's going on? They were just up 27-8, I guess, or 27-5 at the end of the first quarter. So the fact that they didn't even need her was kind of a flex. But that was the first time she had 3 blocks in a game in 5 minutes in that game. But like I said, like that, it's one of those cases where you look at the stats and you think like Cameron Brink's averaging 3 point something blocks. Why isn't Lauren Betts right there? She's just having so much of an impact in there that it's teams aren't even trying.
Yeah, even on the other end of the floor, in one of their matchups against Princeton last week, Princeton kept sending like 3 players at Lauren Betts at all times. And like, first of all, it doesn't always work, but like even when it does work, then you're trying to get the ball out of her hands. Like you said, that just opens up so much more around her. But it's just kind of funny to watch her kind of be that magnetic force because like there aren't really a lot of players like outside of like Aaliyah Boston, who as soon as the ball is in her hands, it's like all 3 players on her immediately. So it's been super fun to kind of just watch that. It's also just funny for me to watch that kind of basketball when you have a player who's just so dominant in the post like that, and teams are just trying everything that they can to defend them. But they did also beat UConn in the Cayman Islands, which I mentioned before, very jealous of the location. Super quick on UConn because we didn't really talk, and I think the injury happened after you and Mark potted last week. AZ Fudd is out for the rest of the season. This is like very disappointing to say the least. It's kind of just you just feel gutted for her almost, and like just what she's gone through with injuries.
I hate it. I hate it so much. You hate when anyone gets hurt, but especially like how many injuries she's already gone through, and Paige Becker's as well. Now, obviously, like I saw a stat, I think, or I saw someone post this the other day that so this is Paige's 4th year, AZ's 3rd year. Obviously, they went to UConn to play together. They've played 17 games together total in now 3 years or 2.5 because of injuries to one or the other, and that's going to be the case through 4 years now of Paige's career. So, yeah, gutted. I hate it so much. This was supposed to be the year that they were finally healthy, and like whether you root for UConn or not, because I know they're a very polarizing team, like just absolutely hate it for AZ Fudd.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know both of us send her our very best wishes in hopes that she has a really good recovery. I can't remember who wrote the article, but somebody wrote out an article that just kind of said that she's not letting this like deter her in any way. So yeah, excited to see her get healthy again, and we wish her all the best. But yeah, just that little piece on UConn since they did lose to UCLA. All right. Our third and final team from our Triple T Thanksgiving tourney takeaways. TCU, Sedona Prince is thriving. As we know, another transfer. I didn't even make the transfer connection until now when I just said it. How like that we're talking about so many transfers in this segment, but she was another transfer, obviously from Oregon. Is now at TCU. They're 7-0. They just beat Nebraska. Cal, should we be paying extra attention to them?
We absolutely should. You could throw transfers in your T alliteration
Oh
thing.
my
I don't
god,
know
we
how you
got
make
we
that
got
work,
like a
but
quadruple
then you
T.
can throw TCU in there. You could throw tournament in there because I think TCU is a tournament team. There's just as many T words as I can think of here.
Wow.
Like you said, seven
Timeout.
and zero. Timeout. Timeout. So TCU has not made the tournament since 2010. They were not in the Big 12 at that time. They've never made the tournament in their time in the Big 12. It's been over a decade. I think this is the team that's going to do it. Mark Campbell, first year coach, coming over from Sacramento State, but he was at Oregon before that, assistant coach at Oregon, where he helped recruit Sedona Prince when they transferred originally from Texas to Oregon. And then he obviously got the job at Sacramento State for a couple years, took them to the tournament last year with a really fun, exciting offense that was very reliant on ball screens and threes. That's what they're doing at TCU now. So you have Sedona Prince thriving. First off, Sedona is a perfect example of why people shouldn't write off AZ Fudd yet, because Sedona also dealt with quite a few injuries throughout her career. And look at what she's doing now. Second off, thriving as the roller and pick and rolls, thriving also in the
I thought you were gonna
post.
say thriving as like our sixth T word.
There it is. There you go. How many are we up to? I lost track.
Yeah,
Uh,
6 or 7.
that's that's the theme. There's your T word theme of the pod. We're
The
getting
people
carried
are
away.
sick of us. The people are so sick of us.
Everyone is shutting off the podcast right now. It's done. I don't even know what I was saying. Yeah,
She's
so she's
thriving. There we
she's
go.
thriving. She's thriving. How many times can we say the word thriving? She's thriving in all these different roles. And this offense is thriving not only because of them, because of well, Mark Campbell, and also because of Sedona, but Madison Connor, another transfer, came over from Arizona. And she has a change of scenery has done wonders for her. She leads the country in 3-point makes per game, 4.5 on 40% shooting, absolutely lighting it up. Jaden Owens, transfer from Baylor, another one who has been an elite distributor for them. She's fit in perfectly with that ball screen offense, and it's really when you look at what Sacramento State was last year and their tournament team, who by the way played UCLA in the first round. We were talking about UCLA, that team, Kalasia Dean running the point, Katie Penueta, the shooter, and Izzy Nadabu in the post. Like Mark Campbell has that. He has that, only way more talented now. And those three were very talented. But now he has that and that same mold of like a three-headed monster with a distributor, a big, and a shooter with power conference talent. And it's really scary what they have to work with there. So I think TCU is going to make some serious noise in the Big 12.
I love it. I love it. So those were our three teams: NC State, UCLA, and TCU from our biggest Thanksgiving tournament takeaways. Make sure to keep an eye on all three of these teams as the college season continues. And coming up next, we are going to preview the inaugural ACC SEC Challenge with exam season and games to watch. All right. So here we are. This is three of the games that we have on Wednesday, November 29. We're going to talk about a lot of the matchups, but right now, if you're watching on YouTube, I've got Notre Dame at Tennessee, Vanderbilt at NC State, and Louisville, whoa, I always said that weirdly, at Ole Miss. I'll put it up in a second again when we talk about where you can watch in one time and all of that. But Cal, which matchup do you have your eye on this Wednesday slate of games?
Well, all of them, but the biggest one, Notre Dame, Tennessee. But by the way, before we even talk about that, though, it's really cool that this is happening. It's the first year of the ACC SEC Challenge. I don't really know why the Big Ten ACC Challenge fizzled out. Probably money or something stupid. But the SEC was like, "Hey, if the Big Ten's not going to do it, we will." And now they're stepping up, and we get this kind of cool. The conference challenges are so fun to me. I wish we had like every conference did these, like just mid majors, everyone, whoever. I understand why we don't. But anyway, that being said, this event is starting off with a bang. I think it's the very first game out of all of these, not just the big ones that you put on the screen, but I think of any of them. 5 Eastern, ESPN2 Wednesday, Notre Dame, Tennessee. Two of college basketball is a classic, blue bloods. Obviously, both have dealt with some injury this year. Are we going to see Rickea Jackson? I don't know. Sonia Citron? I'm not sure. Probably less likely for her. We know about Olivia Miles. But no matter who's playing, like, this is going to be a high octane, just entertaining basketball game. And it's going to be about, like, Hannah Hidalgo, someone we know is going to be playing freshman fire. We haven't said that one yet in this podcast. To me, so Tennessee doesn't have a lot of rim protection. Maybe Tamara Key, but she's not really playing a lot. Hannah Hidalgo is someone who can really put rim pressure. So how is Tennessee going to contain her? And on the other end, how are they going to handle her pressure? She leads the country over 6 steals a game. Jasmine Powell, Jewel Spear, Destiny Wells. I think that backcourt of Tennessee is going to have their hands full. So that's something I'm really watching for in this one.
I like it. I like it. Let me put up these games again so everybody can see. So you can catch Notre Dame at Tennessee at 5 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2. Shout out Mark Schindler again, because I went back to his article that he posted with where you can watch all of these games. He did the homework for you. So make sure you're following him because he will be posting those weekly as well. Some of the other games, though. So let's go to Vanderbilt at NC State. Who's a player? We kind of talked about NC State in the first segment, but is there a player that you're watching out for / what should we be expecting with Vanderbilt, who's been playing better as of late?
Yeah, this is going to be a really good test for Vanderbilt because they're another 7-0 team. Those undefeated teams are starting to dwindle down. Still got a handful of them. Shea Ralph, coming from UConn, has done a fantastic job with them. But you look at that 7-0 record, they've played great. They also have 4 pretty close wins over mid-major teams. UNI is a good mid-major team, and they had their star, Maya McDermott, back for that game. So that's a good win. Fairfield is a good win, too. I think they're making some noise this year. Coached by a Tebow, by the way. Carly Tebow Dudanis. So shout out to the Tebow coaching tree. But
Wow, I love that.
that aside, Vanderbilt doesn't have a win nearly what this would be. This NC State, if they can pull this win off. So Vanderbilt's another one of those teams like TCU. It's been a while since they really made some noise, and I think this is going to be the game where we find out how real that 7-0 record is. I know Mark Schindler, who we mention every 3 minutes on this podcast, has
Right?
them. I think I want to say 27th or 28th. He put out his rankings in maybe it's the same article you're talking about. I think
It
he had
is,
him
yeah.
knocking on the door. I want to say I can't remember the number, but this is one of those where if they get this win, that is absolutely validated.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of these other matchups too. Let's go to the last one that I put up here. Louisville at Ole Miss at 9:15 p.m. Eastern on ESPNU. By the way, you can catch Vanderbilt NC State on the ACC network. What I love about this is that all of these games are televised on places that I can access with my IPTV, and they're not on like Flow Hoops or whatever. Because I have like my IPTV slide aside, it has Flow Hoops, but like it doesn't work for some reason, which makes me very sad. So whenever I see that it's on like ESPN or ACC network, I'm happy. But yeah, for Louisville, Ole Miss, what are you expecting? Knowing that Ole Miss has kind of, I would say, I'm trying to find the right word, like kind of gone up and down in the rankings a little bit, but they've looked pretty good. I know they just suffered also another season-ending injury or some kind of long-term injury with one of their players as well, which is just ugh. But what are you expecting for this matchup?
Yeah. By the way, this is a great season for people who hate Flow Hoops because Thanksgiving time is over and Thanksgiving is Flow Hoops season. But I love that we get to run this back. This is the first of a couple tournament rematches. We saw Louisville versus Ole Miss in the Sweet 16 last year after Ole Miss pulled that big upset over Stanford. And in that game, Haley Van Lith sort of carried Louisville. I think Louisville was able to get the win, but they don't have her anymore. Ole Miss is going to have this one at home. I think this one's going to be. I think that was like a 10-point game or so. I think this one's going to be a lot closer. I think Ole Miss might get the revenge. Like you said, they've been a little bit up and down. Had that loss to Oklahoma, but if this is going to be, this might be one of the probably two or three. If I was going to pick two or three games that I think is really really going to come down to the wire, I think this is right up there. Like I think Notre Dame Tennessee might be the most entertaining game, but I do think Notre Dame is going to pull away in the end. This one, I have no idea who's going to win. I lean Ole Miss, but I think this is going to be a really fantastic basketball game.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. You have them on crunch time watch. A couple of the other games on Wednesday, we got Florida at Georgia Tech, also at 5 p.m. So that's kind of the first one alongside Notre Dame, Tennessee. We also have Miami at Mississippi State at 7:15 p.m. Eastern. Those are the Wednesday games. Do you have any last thoughts on the Wednesday games before we move to the Thursday games for the ACC SEC tourney?
Yeah, I don't think so. Let's hit Thursday.
Amazing. So here we go. On YouTube, I put up our 3 ranked matchups for Thursday, November 30th. We've got South Carolina at North Carolina, Arkansas at FSU, and Virginia Tech at LSU. I got to be careful with all the letters and the acronyms because, as we know, I've had some issues with saying them in the past. But let's start with South Carolina at North Carolina at 7 p.m. Eastern. South Carolina, I think they're both undefeated at this point, South Carolina and North Carolina, if I remember correctly. I don't
North
know if
Carolina did take a loss to
they
K
lost.
State the other day. They did.
Okay,
They did.
so they've got their first loss of the season. Okay, so then South Carolina is the only one out of this matchup that is still undefeated. I guess the big question is, do you see that upset? Do you see South Carolina getting their first loss of the season?
No, I don't. But if I'm wrong, and if North Carolina is going to be able to do it, they're going to have to do a couple things. They're going to have to play. Their defense is basically going to have to do what they did against Aoka Lee and probably even better in that loss to Kansas State that we mentioned. They actually, I think, did a pretty good job against Aoka Lee. All things considered, like you're never going to completely take her out of a game, but they kind of doubled her like off the ball even. Like they were there were some times when the ball was on the wing or in the corner, and they had the weak side wing coming over and basically doubling Aokali to prevent her from even getting the ball. Because North Carolina's been playing smaller this year, so if they're going to go up against someone like Aokali or like Camila Cardoso, which is what we're getting to in this matchup, that they got to get creative. They don't have any one player who's going to go at Maria Gokding would be the one. But when she goes to the bench, if she gets in foul trouble, uh, like that, they got to get creative. So they're going to have to do that again, I think, against Cardoso. But the problem is, I mean, against Kansas State, number one, they were leaving some shooters open and they somewhat got away with it. Not enough to win the game, but Kansas State missed some shots. The problem is they missed more shots. North Carolina shot 2 for 20 from 3 in that game. So if if you're going to do this against South Carolina, you're going to give up some open shots again to players like Tahina Paopao. That's something that would have worked great last year. That we've talked about it on the pod. This year, probably not so much. South Carolina can beat you if you leave them open on the perimeter. Number two, they're going to have to shoot a lot better than 2 for 20 from 3 themselves. If you want to beat South Carolina, you have to make shots. So I'm very interested to see how that defense plays. Especially when they go smaller. But I'm not going to say I see an upset. If I'm wrong, then good for them.
Oh my god, that sounded so salty. Let's move on to the next one.
No
You're
salt.
like, if I'm wrong, then good for them or whatever. But no.
Just
We've got
don't see it
Arkansas.
happening. Not gonna
I
lie.
know. I got you. We've got Arkansas and Florida State at 7 p.m. and then Virginia Tech at LSU at 9 p.m. Eastern. Let me pull up the schedule again so I can tell you guys where to watch it. Arkansas FSU is ESPN2. Virginia Tech LSU is ESPN. Which of these two ranked matchups are you more excited for? / what are our thoughts and feelings on LSU right now?
Whew, that's a tough question. You're bringing the hard hitting questions, Cree. I don't
That's what I'm
know.
here for.
Yeah, I don't know. To be honest, I don't know what's going on. I'm not trying to speculate like the whole world is. So just waiting to see what happens. I do think that from a basketball perspective, they've been fine. Which doesn't say anything about Angel Reese as a basketball player, but I think it says a lot about who they have. Michaela Williams, more freshman fire, have been absolutely
Freshman
hooping.
fire. We love
That's
it.
that's exactly right. That's the motto of this podcast. We talked about everyone coming into the season was talking about the big three: Anissa Morrow, Angel Reese, Haley Van
Who's
Lith.
been playing great, by the way.
Yes, Anissa Morrow has been ever since that first game. Where Colorado really took her out of the game. I think she has been absolutely dominant. And Michaela Williams, this is a big four when Angel Reese comes back. Michaela Williams has been right there. She's averaging, I think, 5 more points per game than Haley Van Lith. So she is the go-to guard if you need a bucket at this point. So I think that LSU has the pieces, obviously, to be one of the best teams in the country with or without Angel Reese. And when she comes back and they sort of figure out how they fit together, because I think part of why Morrow is sort of, you're seeing those numbers go back to kind of what we expected, is because she has a lot more room to operate. But at some point, they're going to figure out how both of those players play off each other and play together. And that's a scary prospect. This is the other tourney rematch that we were talking about. Final Four, obviously, last year, Virginia Tech had a lead. LSU came back and took it, and ended up beating Iowa in the national championship game. Love that we get this rematch as well. One of the headliners of this, maybe the headliner, I don't know, there's so many, it's hard to pick, but of this whole event, Georgia Amore, someone who I will always go back to my bias on. It's a lot different than Illinois State bias. It's just I love watching Georgia Amore hoop. That's all it is. She is so fun to watch, and
Would you
I
say
don't
you're
think.
giving a more to a more?
Yes, I would. Yes, I would.
That
Bree.
was so bad. I
Yeah,
wanted to say it so bad. Like, 'cause I love her name, and like as you know, like I pronounce things differently. So I at first did not know her name was pronounced Amore when I first started watching her last year, and so my brain would always say like amore, like love, like and so yeah, that's just the pun that I think about every time. So I had to say it finally, but
I'm
continue.
glad you said it. I'm glad you worked it in there because that's
Yeah,
exactly what I'm doing. But yeah,
exactly.
That's it. Honestly, this is just a great matchup. This is if you could pick one or two to tune into, I think this is right at the top of the list.
Yeah, and I'll put it one last time for YouTube viewers. South Carolina at North Carolina, 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. Arkansas at Florida State is 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2. And after that South Carolina game, you can catch Virginia Tech at LSU on ESPN at 9 p.m. Eastern. A couple of the other teams in action for the ACC SEC Challenge will be Missouri at Virginia at 5 p.m., Duke at Georgia at 5 p.m., Alabama at Syracuse, 7 p.m. All times in Eastern, by the way, because that's the best time zone. Boston College at Kentucky, 7 p.m. Texas A&M at Wake Forest, 9 p.m. And Clemson at Auburn, 9 p.m. Eastern. I hope you don't mind me saying that, Cal.
No, you're honestly, I was gonna say you're right, but I don't know. I think it's up for debate. We can have that debate
Honestly,
on another
good
podcast.
that you're like it's good that you're in Central Time because it gives me, like, extra time when I'm, like, working late at night on the show notes, and I can think to myself, "Oh, Cal has another hour to do stuff. It's okay if I do things late because he has that time." Okay, let me get the
Let's
train
circle it
back on
back.
track. Let's circle it back.
Circle it back.
One last thing on these matchups, in case people haven't already tuned out by now. Out of these, like, Wednesday and Thursday teams, in the ACC and SEC, if you had to grade them, who are some of the top performers/contenders? Like, for example, for me, when I think of that question, I think of, like, South Carolina being, like, an A+ plus and being one of the top contenders in my eyes. But yeah, who is a team that if you were grading, if it's exam season, you're the prof, who's at the top of the list?
South Carolina.
Well, you can't just
It's
copy my answer.
that's the correct answer.
Okay, fine.
Okay,
Well,
you
yeah,
want to know
that's
who's
true. That's
you
true.
want to know
That's
who's
true. That's true.
second? You want to know
Sure,
who's
sure.
second?
I do. I do.
Because to me it's South Carolina and nobody else is close. Not just in these two conferences. I don't think anybody else is close anywhere in any conference in the country right now. And I know Mark Schindler put it, everyone take a shot or whatever. Mark Schindler, he brought up Mark Schindler again. Mark Schindler has UCLA, I think, in his article. He said that's kind of his top two.
He
Maybe,
did,
but
yeah.
there's a gap. There's a gap to me. 1 to 2, big gap. Who's second though among these teams that we're talking about in this ACC SEC challenge? That's a
Mhm.
really good question. That's a much tougher question for me to answer. I think the highest ceiling is LSU. I think when we get to February, I think I'm going to be saying LSU, but I'm not sure if I would be there right now. So I think right now, I'm going to say Notre Dame. I'm going to even if Citron's not playing, I'm going to say Notre Dame. Notre Dame actually might have the highest ceiling too. Now, if Olivia Miles is able to come back, if they basically get everyone healthy, they're right up there. But I think they're playing really good basketball right now, and Hannah Hidalgo has been out of this planet. So I'm going to go with them.
Okay, you get an A+ plus because I liked your answers. And that's our
I'll
final
take it.
grades. That's our final grades for this week. As always, grades will always change, so make sure to come back next week where maybe we'll have some upgraded grades in I said grade too many times. We will have our updated opinions, thoughts, facts, with the teams next week. Cal, you have anything else you want to add from how was your Thanksgiving or what are you most excited for in this next week of college basketball?
I already brought it up. I'm excited to go see NC State in person. I'm excited to go watch that
That's
game down
right.
there.
You'll
So
be you'll be on site. Hopefully we'll see a bunch of your tweets from your account, from I imagine the Her Hoop Stats account as well. And that's my shameless segue into saying please follow us on social media at Her Hoop Stats on Twitter
that
and
was smooth.
Instagram. That's
That was
Thank
smooth.
you.
I just
Thank
I just
you.
interrupted it to make it less smooth, but just to tell you how smooth it was. It was very smooth.
That's okay, because many people didn't get it, so, they have to get it once you say it. But anyway, you can follow myself at Crina MM, follow Calvin at Wetzel31. You can find us I already said that. You can catch us doing Coast to Coast every week, usually on Wednesday. I know you guys did a Tuesday release last week, but we'll see you next week, probably Wednesday, and this has been Coast to Coast.